Adding audio clips to sequences works very much like adding video clips to sequences, but there are some differences. So I want to show you how to add audio clips to your project. So go to Working Files, Projects, and go on down to 1702, Adding Audio. I have a couple of sequences already set up here and already imported all kinds of clips. Importing audio clips works the same way as importing video clips. You just double click over here and go find your audio. For instance, over here in Other Assets. You might want to use the type like this where you can see the types grouped together. I have a bunch of WAV clips, WAV files here, so they all group together. It's easier to find them. But other than that, importing audio works the same as importing any other kind of clip. So I'll cancel out of that. We have two sequences, and one of them is a blank sequence. And I made that by going down here and going to New Item, Sequence, and then selecting the default AVCHD 1080p 30 sequence. Now notice the default sequence has 6 audio tracks in the default sequence. 3 standard and 3 5.1. Standard tracks can handle both monaural or stereo files. 5.1 can handle only 5.1. But there are other kinds of audio tracks besides these two. To see them, go to the Tracks section here where you can customize the sequence if you want to. So there are 4 basic kinds of tracks inside Premiere Pro: Standard, 5.1, Adaptive, and Mono. If you want to work with mono only, you can have a mono track, but Standard works basically the same. Adaptive works with camcorders that create files that have multiple mono tracks in those single files. So that would be for those kinds of camcorders. And then 5.1 works only with 5.1 files, which are really 6 tracks. Down here are sub-mixes, which you use with the audio mixer, and I'm going to discuss them in my chapter on the audio mixer. But basically, these are tracks that you send multiple tracks to, and you can apply an effect to multiple tracks at once. So I'll cancel out of this. So here we have this empty sequence. I'm going to add some clips to the audio track here. So I'll go over to Audio Clips. The Gettysburg Address is monaural, and how do I know that? I'm going to scroll over here and find out. Over to the Audio Info. 44.1 Hz, 32-bit floating mono. 44.1 Hz, how many samples per second are they? And 44,100 is the CD quality number of samples per second. 48,000 is standard for most camcorders, so it's a little higher quality than CD quality. 32-bit floating means that each one of those samples can be a 32-bit number, which means that those samples are higher quality. 16-bit is the standard for CDs. Then you can see it's mono, 5.1, or stereo over here. Scrolling down to, let's say, a video file, so go to Scenic Shots, and the video files, they say compressed stereo, because this is an MP4 file, so the audio is compressed over there. I'm going to take this monaural file and drag it over here. Drag it over to the first track, or the second, or the third. All of them work fine. If I want to try to add the Gettysburg Address down on the 5.1 track, I'll pull it down here so you can see it there. Drag to the 5.1 track. It won't go there. Since I'm trying to put it down here below the standard audio tracks, Premiere Pro assumes that I want to add a new track. So it's going to add a new track down the bottom. It looks like I put it on top here, but it actually created a new track way down here. Let's add a stereo file. This just couldn't be that way. Xert is 16-bit stereo, so I'll drag it over here. I can put it on the same track with the monaural file. They'll work fine that way. That's a new thing for Premiere Pro CS6. You couldn't do this in CS 5.5. If I click here, it's going to be really loud, so I'll just play it for a second.
Know how much you wanted me to stay.
In the previous lesson, I put it on the sequence and then dropped the volume on it. Here I took it directly from the project panel, so the volume is the original volume. I can tone it down within the project panel using something called audio gain, but the normal workflow is to do that after the fact, after you get it into a sequence. I want to try to add a 5.1 clip here. If I try to add it to this track, it looks like it's going to add it there, but it's actually going to put it down in the first 5.1 track. If I scroll down, you'll see that there it is right there, 5.1. This will sound different because it's a 5.1 clip. Even if you have a 5.1 setup on your system, it won't come out as a 5.1 sounding clip because you got a stereo output here. So the center channel is toned way down, so you really don't hear the singer all that well there. Let's move over to this sequence. Got this set up already, all these scenic shots with natural sound on them. I want to add music to that. So we have the scenic music here. I drag it over here, and I've already set the sequence up to match the length of the music. When you add another audio track, they just mix together. You hear the water and the music. Unlike video, when you put video on top of something, it covers what's below it. On the audio side of things, they mix together. So it's your role in the audio editing side of video production to try to mix those in a pleasing way. You can adjust the volume levels of each one individually. You might bring one up, bring one down, that kind of stuff to have them mix nicely together. So that goes like that. Whereas here you can't hear the background because it's so quiet, but they do mix together like that. I want to remind you about something. If you're going to manipulate clips inside a sequence like this and you got one long track and a bunch of individual clips, if I want to move this clip, for example, I hold on the control with the command key so that everybody slides over to fill the gap. I'm putting it over here so everything pushes over after I put it in. Watch what happens to the audio. It cuts it in two like that. That's because when you do this, it's going to move everything over when you bring that in. You don't want to do that when you got something down there. So a reminder to do that. You can lift it out just fine or extract it, lift it out like that, and then before you drop it in there, hold on the Alt or the Option key, and it'll affect only that track. It won't affect this track down here. So that's just a reminder about the keyboard modifier that you need to use to avoid cutting this audio down below it. You can add audio in multiple tracks. Let's go up here to the audio files. I want to add wind right below that time-lapse shot. I turn audio 1. So the wind comes up here. And then I want to add some thunder too. Put the thunder a little bit later though. That would come up with me right there. Something like that. And just as with video, you can trim audio. I'll trim it over like that so it lines up at the end, and this one lines up at the end as well. And we'll play those together. Good. I would likely control the audio with a little more care, bringing the audio down, bringing the audio up, that kind of thing, mixing them together. So those are the various steps that you go through when you add audio to a sequence in Premiere Pro. I think you'll agree that it's pretty straightforward.